HITEC Europe 2021 sessions, 5 consecutive weekly sessions on Zoom, free to attend as usual. A quick and easy registration for each is all listed on our virtual education and our event website now, as you all know, because you're all got here. Sessions have been curated by our fine advisory council on 5 topics to help hotels become more business and COVID resilient through technology. The topics will be today, guest communications in-house, guest communications before and after via CRM, property management system, is it the time to change? Is it like open heart surgery? Operational efficiencies, including robotics, sustainability, the why, the what, and the how, and the solutions nature provides. The overall series of HITEC Europe 2021 sessions is kindly sponsored by Shoshana Davis and Intel Corporation. And this session in particular is also sponsored by our friend Kees van Donk from NEC. So I'm delighted to say I can now ask them both in turn to provide us a 1-minute introduction before we start the main session. So Shoshana and Intel, your minute of fame.
Thank you, Carl. Hi everyone, my name is Shoshana Davis and I'm from Intel and I lead hospitality for Europe. I only have a minute, so I'm just going to keep it brief. But for many years, we've been working with retailers, restaurants and banks to help them on their digital transformation journeys and have recently ventured into the hotel space. The kind of 5 elements you have up here are the main ways that we are working with hotels to help them on their digital transformation journeys. So if any of these look interesting to you and you want to get started or simply talk about technology or learn more about what we're doing, my contact email address is at the bottom. And I think that's about a minute, Carl. So I'll pass it on to NEC and thank you, everyone.
Expertly done, Shoshana. Thank you very much. So, Mr. Kees van Donk, who was recently the host of one of our European Hangouts. Kees.
Thank you very much, Carl, for this, as always, kind introduction. Now, as today's topic is indeed about guest communication in-house, and as I'm a proud representative of the world's first global, let's say, communication solution provider to the hospitality industry, I directly jumped up and asked Carl, I want to sponsor this because this turf is ours, it needs to be here. So we are extremely proud to co-present this together with Intel. Now, what you're seeing here now, these flags is, let's say, a bit of a hint that if you have any specific questions prior, let's say, to the, I wouldn't call it the dark room, but to the club rooms at the end of the session, please feel free to reach out to me in any of these languages. And also these flags very much remind me to the extremely successful Eurovision contest that we had last weekend. So with that, Carl, to you, 12 points, and let's continue with the show. Thank you very much.
Gosh, there's always one person who has to bring up the Eurovision Song Contest. Dear me. Okay, so, and now our first HITEC Europe session 2021, the 4 rights for 5 guest messaging opportunities. We have 4 excellent speakers who will be introduced by the chair of our HITEC Europe 2021 Council, Mr. Ian Miller of the Cezanne Hotel School. Ian, over to you.
Thank you, Carl. So maybe let's get into the thick of it. So obviously, good afternoon. Welcome to our first HITEC session. Today, I'm very happy to we'll start with the 4 rights for 5 guest messaging opportunities. So this will be the second part and moderated by Andrew Evers, Group IT Manager from Red Carnation Hotels. But to start us off, we are going to have Vanessa Borkman, who is Head of Research and Initiator of the Innovation Network Future Museum from the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany, who will start us off with a short presentation. Vanessa, all yours.
Thank you, Ian. Very welcome that I'm here today in the afternoon and that you invited me to give a presentation. I hope I can manage to share the screen now. And it would be nice if you give me a feedback if you can see my presentation now. I hope you can see it. That's great. Thank you, Carl. So yes, my name is Vanessa Borkman. I'm happy to share this presentation now about guest messaging opportunities along the customer journey. But I have to say that I will come with a broader perspective about guest communication in a hotel today and probably tomorrow. I'm working as a researcher for the Fraunhofer Society. I guess most of you heard about this research institution, which is responsible for applied research, mostly in Europe, with more than 26,000 researchers these days. I installed and I'm leading the Future Hotel Research Network since 2006. So it's an ongoing project for many, many years now. And besides of different methodologies in our research and different topics that we handle to find out how the future of hospitality and hotels is going to look like, we are also working with our own laboratories. So we have testing fields to build up prototypes, and maybe if you follow the project, you know that we came up with a showcase future hotel in the year 2008, which presents a vision of a hotel room of the future. But if we talk about messaging and communication with guests, then I want to introduce you to another lab that is placed in Stuttgart in our institute's building, which you can see on that picture. It's called the Urban Living Lab. And I came up with the idea for this lab in the year 2009. Thinking about the impact of different technologies in our daily life, in our work life, and when traveling. So this laboratory with approximately 150 square meters is all about human technology interaction scenarios. And we talk about citizens and travelers in public and in private spaces. So the main idea to tackle this topic of human technology interaction was that in the future, this is the perspective from 2009, this interaction and communication will be based on profiles, on user profiles. It was quite a new idea, and so we showed in this laboratory how this can be applied to different situations, having profiles of users in the context of a cityscape. And there were many technologies who needed to be applied and were part of that research. We worked with ubiquitous computing, so there were sensors all over this laboratory. We worked with augmented and mixed realities in there. And this idea of profile-based, personalized services was depending on the situation, the location of the certain person. Where are you located, and what kind of interaction is needed in terms of technology to receive a certain information and a certain service. And this is the main idea of this laboratory since then. If you know what kind of person, at what time, and in what place and situation, with what special needs, then you can provide, let's say, perfect and individual service. We worked there on the basis of smartphone interaction, but we also had different technologies in use. We talked about different touch points in this laboratory. So you can see on the pictures the different situations: opening a door in a hotel space, passing by different situations in an urban environment while traveling, and also a point of sale or a point of interaction, which could also be a reception in a hotel space. Besides of this work with prototyping and testing in the laboratory, we also conducted a survey and found out by a survey, an international survey among hotel guests with many respondents, more than 1,000, if hotel guests if travelers are willing to share information with a hotel. And what kind of information are they willing to share? That's probably the basis if you want to have individualized and profile-based communication with your guest. You need to know what are they interested in what kind of situation. And you can follow the information on this slide. The most prominent idea is to get information where I can find a certain restaurant. This is information which is necessary for a guest while being in a hotel. Having information on arrival and departure of, for example, trains, or information where I can find a certain site. Getting information on general tips or leisure facilities, and so we could find out what is in the interest of a certain traveler. You can see on this slide that we conducted a survey among business travelers, but also among leisure travelers. And we found out that 1 in 3 guests under the age of 30 is willing to share information about their hotel stay on social media, and also likes to receive situation-specific information from the hotel via smartphone. And 1 in 5 of all the participants of the survey would share his geographical location, so is willing to share his location. Yeah, so when it comes to this question, the 4 rights, the right message to the right individual at the right time via the right channel. It's a question, which message in which situation, which customer and hotel guest via which channel. And the customer journey or the hotel guest journey is a helpful tool to learn about the right situation, which is the right phase to get in touch with your hotel guest, which is the right situation to offer a certain information or offer a certain service. And we see that it's not, it's really depending on technology and digitalization if you communicate with your guests today. There will be a physical communication as well, but the messaging and the communication is becoming bigger and bigger in the digital realm. And so also the topic of data management is becoming more and more important in every step of this customer journey. Your customers are bringing their own devices, their own technology, but besides of this, as a hotel, you also should be prepared and have technology in order to connect with this customer and the technology they are bringing. Experiences, the guests' experiences, are increasingly based on the use of technology and data. And it's important to have a customer centricity in focus. And only with the help of digitalization, you are able to conduct and provide smart services in the hotel industry along this customer journey. If you work with data, if you work with technology and artificial intelligence these days, the information about personal preferences can be used throughout the customer journey as a whole. In the case of a return, a similar product can be offered, for example. You can work with events, with current situations like the weather to communicate with your guest and enable a personal approach. If it starts raining, you should know where's your customer, where's your hotel guest in this situation. Can you help him in this situation? Yeah, and depending on the customer search behavior, there are 2 different options. The one is that maybe a customer wants to be inspired You can have many products that you provide the customer as a service, as an idea for consumption, and maybe your customer will be thankful to have this kind of inspiration. In another situation, your customer is searching for a very special product. So in this situation, it's good if you know exactly what your customer is searching for. Then you can offer a very precise product, service, or information. It's also important to think about the choice of channels, because this is also part of personalization. Not every person is ready to use every channel for communication. It's all about the touch points in the future, the different touch points, the different situations along this customer journey, and they will become more and more intelligent. What does it mean if touch points become intelligent? It's all about the use of digitalization, especially the use of artificial intelligence. Then these touch points can become optimized and automated along the customer journey. AI can be used in form of direct analysis via voice, image, or text modules, which means you can use chatbots, you can use image recognition systems or text modules, as it says. Your customers expect more and more personalized experiences, and this will only be possible by using data and data analytics and technologies like AI. Also, machine learning is an important tool. What are the opportunities if you use data and online communication? You can have much more services and connections, direct connections to your customers, to your hotel guests, while they stay in the hotel, but also outside the hotel. The ecosystem is broadened, and the area in which you can connect with your customers is broadened as well. By using all this digitalization and technology, the hotel is becoming a smart service ecosystem. There are mobile devices, intelligent objects, the use of IoT, the Internet of Things, smart networking by artificial intelligence. All of this enables new scenarios of interaction, of communication, bringing messages in the right situation to your guest. There are some more opportunities. Guests are interconnected. There's real-time communication possible between the guests and the employees, real-time, wherever they are. The employees have the possibility to interconnect with each other. There's a personal addressing possible in space inside the hotel or even outside the hotel. And you can work with much more data which can be relevant to find out about the needs of your guest. The customer experience will be a differentiating factor in the future, more than today already, for a hotel, because the products, the built hotel, is becoming more and more similar. They are all high standard service offerings, and they have beautiful architecture and interior designs. So the customer experience will be a differentiating factor and a success factor. Positive overall customer experience will also have a positive business effect. But it's all about personalization. Here's a quote, only through one-to-one personalization will it be possible to really set oneself apart in the future. So it's all about knowing your guests in a certain situation. And now let's see what happens in between this customer journey in the different phases. How can you have contact with your guests? In the first phase of inspiration and search, it's the situation of the guest that there's a selection online, probably a booking process also happening online these days. So you can have contact with your guest on the website itself or on the app. This is the channel to communicate. There is a great potential for e-commerce, for online sellings, store functions, shopping in the virtual spaces, but also in the online space, which can be a 3D tour through the hotel. There you can already offer certain services or offer an upselling. The hotel app can be a platform for such a communication. The website, a chatbot, which is implemented there, displays, which are on site, and terminals where you can interconnect with your guests. This can be used as an additional source of revenue. You can sell F&B products, delivery services, or merchandising products. All this you can already do before your guest arrived at your hotel. The digital search processes and additional bookings and purchases can happen, for example, for booking a breakfast, delivery service, or hotel store items, or you can sell a parking lot to your customer even before they arrived. Direct messaging can be an asset, also in the phase of booking and arrival. It has the potential for segmentation and management of guest profiles, scheduling of personalized messages and promotions to guests based on arrival dates, group size, or other metrics. Contact to the right guest at the right time. But what is a basic need to realize these solutions is that you need a connection to the PMS system. This is relevant that you can work with guest profiles, that you can do that segmentation, and that you can connect with the systems and arrange the messaging. And as you can see on the slide, there can be direct messages as a booking confirmation, a pre-check-in message, a welcome message when you arrive at the hotel, and also when your guest is checking out, you can provide your guest with a personalized direct message. Digital self-check-in and self-checkout should be accompanied by direct messages as a support for the guest communication. If your guests are in-house during the stay, there is a different form of communication possible. You can have the digital communication and services, support via chatbots, or a digital concierge that is popping up, maybe based on beacon technology when your guest is inside of the hotel. Instant personalized online communication. This can also lead to a strong bond, to a connection of a certain guest with a certain employee, which can be an asset as well. The employees can introduce themselves and be the concierge following the guest whenever the guest is in a certain need. There can be screens inside the hotel for real-time video communication or live streaming in the reception area, in the lobby, a TV screen or a smart device on the hotel room, which can be an access point, a channel for communicating with the guest while he or she is in that space. So that's about guest experience management and remote services, which can be provided inside the hotel during the stay. When the guest left the hotel, post-stay and in the reflection phase, how can you convince your guest to return as soon as possible? How can you make your guest recommend your hotel and talk about the stay on social media? And how can you keep your guest booking further services? This is possible if you are in contact with your guest, for example, with your own hotel app, but much more if you are connected on different social media channels. There are different ones possible. You see the logos here, and I think you very much know about the social media channels behind these logos. There are many, so many different channels on social media. Having a hotel app, yes or no? Is it really necessary to be in contact with your hotel guest? Is it too much effort to have a hotel app? Is it better to use a social media channel or many of them? These are open questions. I am not giving an answer because this is a decision that every hotel has to make on its own, based on the customers, based on the idea of guest messaging and communication. These days, most of us have an information overload on their smartphones, in their email accounts. There are many messages. So what I recommend is to better have less messages for the guest than many, but the right ones. If we have a look at this statistic about the most popular social networks worldwide from January this year, you see that Facebook is on the top of this ranking, followed by YouTube and WhatsApp, followed by the Facebook Messenger and Instagram, WeChat and TikTok. And the list is continued on the right side. So what should you spend your money on? Where do you have to be visible? Being visible to the many or to the right one? This is a decision. And I want to give an example because you see that, going back, TikTok is not on the highest position of this ranking. But Switzerland Tourism, as an example, was pioneering 1 year ago on TikTok when it was not so famous and not so prominent, at least in Europe. And they worked together with 2 TikTokers who provided TikTok with many videos, and they were very successful. So it's not only a guarantee for success to be active on the most prominent platform. It's important sometimes to be an early adopter and an early mover and start on a platform that is not so famous yet. This can be an approach. Until 2000, only 10% of all vacationers obtained their travel planning information from the internet. Only 10% 20 years ago. Today, it looks much different. 82% of all holidaymakers get their travel information on the internet and book their holidays on the internet. So the internet is a good platform to be in contact with hotel guests. But how to find the right channel? And what is the success factor to choose the right channel? If you want to be active on a certain channel, this means a lot of effort. And there's an expertise, a professional expertise necessary. Not every channel is valid for every hotel. You have to make a choice of a channel or of certain channels depending on your certain target group. And also the form of message is dependent on the channel. On TikTok, you work with videos, on YouTube as well. On Twitter, usually no videos, then you work with text. The right channel depends on the situation. Why and when do you want to catch up with a certain customer? This is the situation-based and context-based topic. In what kind of situation is your hotel guest willing to use the smartphone? In what kind of situation is your hotel guest in a situation to look at a screen? And very important as a success factor, if you are active on one of these channels at least, track it, measure, analyze your efforts and the results, and consider how you can continue. It's all about data-based decision-making in order to be successful. This is a quote from Henry Ford, who says, "I know half my advertising is money down the drain. I just don't know which half." And here, artificial intelligence can be helpful to analyze the customer behavior and find out what kind of product is supportive. There are ways to measure. I'm not going really into detail with this slide, but there are KPIs. And for example, you can measure the context, the satisfaction, the experience of a certain event or situation, the impact on the brand, and also monetary goals. This is measurable, and based on these insights, you can come up with a strategy at the end, at least a data-based decision-making. Yeah, the right message, the right individual at the right time, via the right channel. With the help of AI, it's possible to predict also future behavior and also the effect on personal preferences much more accurately, as a wide range of interconnections can be taken into account. So you can make predictions, and they are made based on the behavior of customers, also of other customers in similar situations. This is the topic of big data. Yeah, let's have a look, an outlook, what guest communication might look like in a hotel of the future. Will be much more not only about knowing of needs, but also communicating values, storytelling. The hotel of the future is a place of a unique identity, and this can be experienced with all senses. And the most important touch point probably for this is the individual experience in the physical space, not at a website, not being in a virtual situation, being in the physical space and receiving an experience by communication. This could look like such situations in a tourism office, as an example. The space becomes a communication and interaction tool, as you can see. It can be a table, it can be a part of a wall, it can be interactive, and it's communication for services, for information, for experience, or to communicate brand values. If we use augmented reality for live communication, for example, combined with artificial intelligence, situations might look like this. These are examples from a museum. You could have holograms that are concierges that just follow you and are companions. Whenever you need them, they are there and you can communicate with these companions. Intelligent touch points and a very customized and personalized service. This might be a future outlook on communicating with your guests in a physical space. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm open for questions now if there are any.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. That's a really insightful view of data and how we can spot the opportunities and take advantage of them the best, and how this might translate into the future. So thank you very much for that. So a quick just review of the 4 rights very quickly. The right message, right individual, the right time, via the right channel. And let's talk about those 5 opportunities. So that's the pre-book during the search, booked and pre-arrival, arrived in-house, departure, and your ongoing messaging. So we've assembled a panel of experts to join us today, each with their own journey, their own path, their own decisions. And I'm very pleased to introduce to you, first of all, Mr. Charles Arundel, Head of Digital Service for TUI. Charles, obviously, you're not primarily a hotel business, but we share many of the same challenges with you. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so yeah, Head of Digital Service in TUI Amusement, the part of the business that manages the on-holiday experience, but obviously work with partners across the entire journey. And that's why I think it's really relevant to talk about the entire journey and those steps beyond it, because that is the bit that we are so obsessed about in guiding people on their holiday experience. So messaging is critical to that.
Right, thank you very much, Charles. Next, delighted to welcome Robert Spires, Marketing Manager of Cheval Residences. I hope I've pronounced your surname correctly there, Robert. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Cheval, you have the experience of rolling out and then scaling up a brand-wide application from a minimum viable product into your current iteration. Robert, welcome.
Thank you. It is Spears, although...
Spears, yeah, okay, good.
Should make sense. No, that's fine,
yeah.
Don't worry. Yes, I'm head of marketing for Cheval Collection. We currently run 12 residences in London, Edinburgh, all apartments. So we have quite an interesting mix of short and long stay in the space. So kind of behaving like a hotel in some scenarios, but then so not. Yeah, we've had an app for, God, I think it's just over 3 years now. So yeah, some interesting developments in terms of how that works and how that's evolved over time, because I think part of when we first started, we didn't quite know exactly where it was going to go. With a bit of uncertainty, but the use has steadily increased over time, so it's quite useful.
Great, thank you. And then finally, a great pleasure to welcome Philip Ibrahim, General Manager of the Student Hotel in Berlin. Student Hotel, known as a hyper-modern brand for those who didn't just learn technology, but those who grew up with it. Philip, welcome.
Thank you very much. Very pleased to be here. It's always great to listen to Vanessa, so thank you for the insights. Yeah, Student Hotel is actually a hybrid model that combines purpose-built student housing with regular hotel guests and long stay guests, to name a few of the tribes that run our business. And overall, it's 15 properties, Europe, well, let's say global, let's be big, like global, which is Europe as well, with a couple of them to open.
Yeah, great. I've had the pleasure of staying with you. It's a wonderful brand and I really enjoy it there. Thank you very much, Philip. So I'd like to start with a really big open question, just drawing out something which Vanessa brought up there. All of your brands have got an app of some sort, which does cover multiple of our 5 opportunities and also multiple of our 4 rights, sometimes all of them, sometimes a subset. We're all of us covering most social channels as well as the more traditional email marketing. Do you guys think there's any danger of an app for an app's sake? Does this potentially divert funds away from other measurable channels, or how do you guys square with that? Philip, why don't you start us off? Thank you.
Well, I think there is one important thing that we always have to look at. It is crucial that a hotel or that a provider looks at the people living and residenting with him, because otherwise, if you have a hotel somewhere in the Bavarian suburbs and you're great on TikTok, I'm not sure whether your guests really enjoy what you do. So it has to be some sort of a level of the guests you cater to, and as well, it has to, I mean, let's say, be authentic to the product that you stand for, if you name it on those points. So I think there is some sort of individual look onto that, and something that I really want to raise here, where it's great to look at the guest perspective, because that's obviously what we cater to, but it has to be as well applicable and usable by the staff members that we have. So that as well includes something that differs per location, per age group, per people that work with you, and as well along this.
Right, sure. Yeah, that resonates with me very much as well, and that's absolutely on point of exactly what we're talking about here today. The right messaging, the right time via the right channel. Exactly that, sir. Thank you. So I feel like, Robert, your brand kind of, I think, more of an app for you. I know you've got a very accomplished app, which you've developed over a period of time, and it's scaled. You started with the minimum product and you've developed that upwards and upwards. Is it fair to say that your audience are more app inclined, or is it more of a stack or a blended approach?
It really does depend. I mean, we found that because the properties we have are a bit of a mix. So some tend to be almost exclusively long stay, some of the smaller ones. And then the larger properties, and we're not talking that large. I mean, the largest we have is about 160 apartments. But where there's more transient business coming through, we do tend to find that there's more usage. And actually, in a couple of the residences, we don't include phones in the apartments. So we do force you into either coming all the way down to reception or using the app. So that's one clever way of doing it, as a hot tip. But no, but then we find that so the more transient business we have, the more engagement we tend to get. But then we find that people who are staying for longer periods either go one of two ways. Either they like building up the relationship with the person in the reception on the front office that they see every day, and it becomes part of their wider group of acquaintances, or they use it continuously, almost daily. I'm having a package delivered. Please, can you replace my towels? This is happening. It's everything is channeled through through that channel, and so it just depends how they like to communicate.
So it's kind of a channel manager. Then you're using it almost.
Yeah, and we find that. Particularly in some of the more transient properties, we get a usage rate of about 35%. So call it a third. We'll tend to use it. And of the people that, a lot of people are aware of it because we do engage at various different touch points. I mean, from the moment you've made a booking, the confirmation tells you about the app. It's all over the website, the pre-arrival email. At the front desk, we tie it in with the Wi-Fi code. It's again, there's collateral in the apartment. So most people know about it and say so on departure. And if we ask them, in the guest survey, why didn't you use it? It tends to be, I'd rather use the phone. I'd rather speak to somebody in person.
So you kind of need to expecting people to just gravitate towards the channel that they prefer themselves.
Absolutely, it's a choice. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
I think that channel choice though is a really important part, because I find that, especially being in TUI, a very obviously successful and large organization, there's a tendency to look internal and think about our own channels, but actually providing channel choice and recognizing that channel choice goes beyond just the channels that you can actually provide and manage. I think it was referenced in the presentation, but if you think about somebody going on holiday, they may have an app for the flight. They may have an app that comes through from the tour operator.
Right.
They may have an app for the hotel. They may have two apps for the hotel. That happens in TUI because we have TUI branded hotels, but then we also have TUI non-branded hotels. And so we have to cater for two versions essentially. And so I think we've always got to be conscious of the fact that we can get too internal when we look at these things. We really need to take it from that guest experience and understand that actually there's lots of different channels, even just within an app, there's lots of different variations of app, let alone when you then start thinking about other channels that guests could look at, which makes it then really difficult to navigate, and why you have to then be very clear on who the people you're trying to reach are, try to segment them and understand, predict which channels they're likely to use. And then you can be more useful.
How do you, it's an interesting point that you've just sort of twigged me onto there. How do you, and this is a good question for you too, Robert, how do you make sure that people have your app and not the Skyscanners or the booking.coms of this world? How do you make sure people bring into that?
Sorry, Charles, give us too.
Sure. Yeah, so essentially from our perspective, it's about being useful to the guests. So we try and segment and understand our guests, understand the things that are most valuable to them, which typically actually in an app type service or in any of the channels, it's one or two things that are absolutely critical. So for us, one of that is the live chat, that we're able to have two-way communication with the customer whilst they're on holiday. That is absolutely critical, and we just market that essentially because that we know is really, really valuable. We know it's an entry point in, and once they've gone through that entry point, then we can show them the different varieties of other capabilities that we've got in the app itself. So it's our unique point of difference, really, in potential other competitor apps that we've got out there, that gives us the opportunity to grab their attention and grab their download.
Mm-hmm. Robert, did you have a comment on that?
Yeah,
too?
no, I 100% agree with that. The live chat element of the app that we have is the most important and the best used. I mean, the rest of the app does function a lot like an in-room directory, in that we've got all of the restaurant recommendations and all the information about the stay. So that's obviously on there as well. But absolutely, the live chat is the piece. But we do know that, like I said, back to the whole channel choice. We also operate a WhatsApp reservations team, because we know that sometimes that's how people want to everything on WhatsApp. The entire reservation is conducted through that channel.
That's great.
Andrew, perhaps to add 2 points just out of the vision. I worked 18 years for Accor, and building an app in like one of the biggest players was really an interesting task. What really changes the usage of the app is the length of stay that you can stay and use it while you have it on the. It's not a question of the downloads, it's the question of the usage. So having communication in the app really forces people to keep it. Now, here comes a bit the deal. You can, as a hotel company, it's easy to touch the part of desire. When you look at pictures, I want to go to Bora Bora or whatever, that's really where we can make great pictures. So usually we fail in the communication part. That's where other people are very good at. But there is as well something that Vanessa touched, which is based on AI and communication, where the person that holds the app is able to choose in which way they communicate with you. Just as an example, there is a provider from Israel. What they do is they send out an SMS or whatever code, where the guest that gets the SMS decides the tool that he wants to communicate in. So a Chinese person will not have WhatsApp, and a Russian person will have more likely another tool. So they define which channel they use, and then they talk in their native language, and my staff members at the reception replied in their native language, and the AI translated it in the right question. And when the guest had a question during their stay, most of the 80 or 90% of the questions, I guess the guys can agree, is at what time does this open? At what time? How much is the parking fee? I don't need staff members to reply to that. That to be having done that automatically, and then let them take care of what Robert, I think, greatly mentioned, the guest service, and what Vanessa as well said, the emotion. That's really the key of the usage of the app. And then afterwards, all the normal things like feedback tools and how to book and how to pay, that is the easier task. But have it useful for the guests is like the biggest task that we have and can do.
Yeah, and I'm dying to ask you, Philip, do you as the general manager in the room here, how do you see to it that the app is not like a service detractor, that it doesn't detract from the human interaction element?
I wonder why this has to do with the general manager. Most and foremost, I'm a person that loves to travel, so I'm usually the person at the other end of the app. I would say that for us as a hotel, the easier communication is when the guest is here. I can tell him what's happening, so it's always easier to ask. But me, for example, as somebody who's traveling, I like the trip planning part much more. Like what to add, at what time do I have to be where, there is a change in schedule, the train ticket is already uploaded, and now all the COVID measurements, stuff like this to be in a central function is something that would be or is crucial to me. When I'm in a destination, I'm more the person that don't need the inspiration of the destination, because then I can use Google or whatever other points. So that's something different. Now, if I talk about my hotel here, people used to live with me a longer period. So communicating with them, like a basic thing, somebody who lives here, he wants to know before he travels from the 7th floor down to the ground floor to wash his clothes, is a washing machine free? Have this on your app is really something cool. Or open your bike that you always have, a shared bike with your app. That's a crucial thing. Or report a damage in your room through an app without popping by the reception, waiting for a receptionist to stop talking on the phone or stuff like this. So there is a thin line, and as well, I mean, the basic difficulty is to provide something to each of the tribes that you cater to. In a hybrid model, or in a, let's say, in a scaled product like ours, we need to fit in every gap at that, and I think that's rather difficult to find always the right track. So for us, students is key. People who stay longer with us. So usually everything we do is focused on them.
Interesting. Thank you. Yeah. So your approach is think of it as a customer before you think of it as a general manager. Yeah.
It's probably a bit my problem. I probably fail in always thinking about general manager. At the other hand, it might be easier as well, because I love to see things how the people see who come here. Most of them are not general manager in this hotel. So my opinion might be good on paper, but not in life.
So I'd like to go around each of you, just thinking about the context of our audience here. Now that you've gone through this process, each of you in your own iteration, if you have just finite resources and you need to identify who that audience is, again, the 4 rights, who is the audience, what is the channel, etc. How do you figure out what's the, where do you start? That's what I'd like to, that's the question. Where would you like to start? So let's, Robert, what's your take on that?
I suppose to start, I mean, the best way is always is just ask guests, ask them, use a survey tool if you have one already. We use Review Pro, does some great surveys, so that's good to get some hard data on what people want. And then, I mean, yeah, we're a smaller group. I mean, we're nowhere near the size of someone like TUI or a large organization like that. So there is an opportunity cost of investing in something, in a new piece of technology. The partner we work with, Kryson, they built it as a platform, with the idea being that you could plug in and out different bits, different pieces of technology and services as the app developed. So I think that's what attracted us in the first place, was that, you know, we looked at developing our own through an agency, but the cost was just astronomical. And these things, you know, as technology evolves, it becomes obsolete so quickly. So you have to keep moving. But yeah, I mean, coming back to the original point, yeah, you just have to ask your guests. And
yeah, sounds obvious, doesn't it, when you say it like that? How about you, Charles? What's your take on that?
I mean, I second Robert's point, but I suppose to build a second point on top of it, I think part of it is in the doing. So I think sometimes you can make these things look so costly and so big and so complex that you don't do it in fear of doing it wrong, or in fear of losing money, or all of these kinds of aspects. You know, we're all, especially in pandemic times, managing a tough P&L. But I think you can downsize it with the right methodology, a sort of a lean approach, create small versions of the things that you want to test and try, do it, get the feedback back, either just through people using it, or through, Robert was saying, in terms of creating engagement with the customer base and understand what they're looking for, whether the things you're doing are good. And then also think about the way that you would want to build those things, because sometimes I think we default to build it ourselves, which can be extremely time consuming and costly. And actually it's much simpler and sometimes cheaper to at least start with going third party and just finding a provider that's already good at this, that can click in pretty damn easily to your business and start something for you today that you can start learning from. As long as you've got the right contractual setup, the right data feed, analytics, etc. off the back of it, you can learn extremely quickly for a relatively low cost and improve your customer experience in a very, very quick way.
That's great, Charles. Thank you very much for the advice. And finally, that same question to you there, Philip. We're very clear on your guest. You know who your guest is quite clearly, so you know the right person. You know the channel. What's your view?
Well, yeah, I mean, what the gentleman said is, but what can I add? I mean, it's the biggest focus. The guests and learn from them, but even what Charles said was on my list as well. So accept that partners might be better at something that costs you a lot of time to do it mediocrely good, and then trust in these partners and probably focus on those things that you really can affect immediately, without, and that as a hotelier might be the key, without losing the bigger or biggest battlegrounds. If I look into mentioning third parties is good, but we as hotelier, we lost some grounds by accepting that bookings can be made through a partner that's called Booking. And then all of a sudden wonder, oh, look, they can take every money they want for any booking they take. So probably it's smart to keep a bit a line in what you do there. But if you trust in a partner, there is no issue in working with them. I think I did that all the time. Some of them are much better than we in a lot of things.
Yeah. Okay, great. That's great advice, Philip. Thank you very much. Now, this is a huge subject, and it'd be great to talk about data and finding that data and deciding where to put cost first of all for our audience. Unbelievably, we're already out of time, I regret, and I would love to carry this conversation on. And for those of you who would like to do so, please do join the rooms in your chosen language after this, after we wrap up here. And so, gentlemen, Charles, Robert, Philip, thank you very much indeed. Vanessa, thank you so much for joining us and your presentation as well. And so we're done here, and I'm going to be joining the German room. And if anyone else would like to join their chosen rooms, we'll see you on the other side. Thank you very much.